Albus, thanks for being here, man.
Caleb, good to see you.
It's nice to have you in our home. This is the first time you've been in this home here in the desert of the sun.
It's lovely.
Yeah, thanks.
Ranch style.
Yeah, is that what you call this?
Yeah, you definitely do.
It's
We're used to basements in Colorado.
Right. Basements, attics, floors, snow.
Yeah.
Is it snowing there now?
Just snowed right as we were getting on the plane.
All right. Well, it's nice to have you here in 60-degree weather, and I'm
Thanks.
glad that you're doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with your name. Albus. Albus Brooks is your name.
Yep.
And we'll get to your nickname in just a moment. But first, your first name comes from two names, right?
Yes,
How's
it's
that
a
go?
Western Ghanaian tradition, Western African. Albert and Buster are my two grandfathers. It's a fun dinner party deal, right? Okay, what's your grandfather's first name? Put them together, and then you get Albus.
So Albert and Buster,
Yep.
we just combine them to get Albus.
Could have been Bustle.
Bustle? Could
Yeah.
have been.
That would have been weird. Great football name.
Great football name.
Bustle Brooks.
All right, speaking of football, you were known for your football for a time.
Wait a second.
Huh?
Albus
Okay.
is Latin for white. I'm black. Clearly different. But it's just an interesting...
The irony.
Yeah. Albus Dumbledore, the white wizard.
How about that? Albus Dumbledore. Are you into is that
Not
the
at
Potter
all.
thing?
Not at all. But it's the younger generation. Anytime they see him, they're like, no way.
No way.
Here he is. The white wizard.
But you're black.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's weird.
Okay, but your nickname. Your nickname.
Yeah.
Because
Now I get to black.
now you get to black.
Yes.
You played football. You were pretty good at football, some would say, coming up. And did your nickname Blackout Brooks come in high school or college?
That's a good question. It came in high school.
Did you decide that your nickname was was Blackout Brooks, or did someone decide that for you?
You know, on my football team, I used, we knock people out a lot. And a guy by the name of Tim Camarco,
Who was a good linebacker?
who was a good linebacker, said, I think he blacked out. I think that should be your name. And so we started messing around with it. It was cool back then. And I put it on my Letterman's jacket. Remember that?
I remember the Letterman's jackets. Yeah. Yeah, you did put it on your Letterman's jacket. Blackout Brooks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember the guy hitting the guy on the back?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
you
you
went
remember
all the
that.
way there. Yeah. Ironing these things on the back. We played basketball together. In fact, that's how we met. We were rivals at rival elementary schools in Claremont, California. And you were like that really good punk kid with a bad attitude that my little Condit team was like, that's Albus. And
And he was,
me?
Caleb, like this tall, skinny, kind of Dan Marley, Phoenix Sun
Dan Marley.
look-alike with the blonde flowing hair.
Flowing blonde hair.
I don't know what you call those things that you had back then.
Yeah. It wasn't like a rat's tail, but it was somewhere between like a mullet and
It was a mullet, really, before we knew what mullets were.
okay.
And I know that's a sensitive point because we've talked about that in your time we can go there.
I mean, you already did. So what I had just confessed to you, divulged. Speaking of Tim Camarco, the really good linebacker and friend of ours, is that I feel like it was Tim. We're sixth grade, and I was a trendsetter, like the Zach Morris in the front, the surfer mullet type thing in the back.
Lord have mercy.
And lots of people were doing it. And then I was playing basketball on the blacktop, like sixth grade. And I think it was Tim on the side going, look at Caleb's hair. He's now just let it go too long. He's starting to look like a girl. So I didn't tell anyone that I heard that. I just went home and was like, Mom, supercuts.
Time to get it up.
Time to go.
I think that's so interesting. We both have young kids. Mine, 13, 11, and 9. Yours?
7, 5, and 3.
And you just think about those moments that they never forget.
Yeah. What are those moments that like left a mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you will not forget that.
Oh, well,
right?
no, never grow my hair again like that either.
Yeah.
For good reasons.
Yeah. I was thinking that all the time when I saw you, right? I'm glad I never said it to you because I might have been one of those marks for you.
You probably are for something else. It just hasn't come
come
up.
out
It
yet.
hasn't come up yet. Okay, Blackout Brooks, basketball. So that was the football thing. In basketball, you were also pretty good, and we were rivals at elementary schools. But then we got to play together on this like NJB All Star team in 6th or 7th grade, and became friends at that point. Yeah.
Yep. 6th, 7th grade. And, I think what I love about that is our team was half black, half white.
Mm-hmm.
A matter of fact, it was probably more black.
Definitely more black.
Yep. And that probably been one of the first teams that you've been, a minority on.
Mhm,
And
for sure.
I think it marked a lot of our friendship. My friend, like, why are you hanging out with Caleb? You know what I'm saying? And not your friend saying that, but they probably would say that I was closer to you than they were. And I'm sure that was weird.
Yeah, because I had like the volleyball friends too,
Yep.
and they were not all white because there were a couple of black dudes that played volleyball and were good and we had fun. But yeah, most of them were white, and no one ever made any like negative or racial or jealous comments. But yeah, for sure that they knew that you and I were tight.
Yeah. It's just interesting. And I think for such a time as this, right, when I think the world, especially America, is retreating to their silos, to their cultural standards, to what they feel comfortable with, what has raised them and given them a sense of who they are. That's actually not where we want to be headed.
Yeah.
And we want to be headed to the other. We want to step out of our silos. That is what it means to be American, right? Is to break out of that. And I'm glad that our friendship has been shaped by that.
Yeah, totally. Me too. And I think even more than American, I think that's what we want to be as humans, right? I mean,
totally.
even American can be a silo that sometimes doesn't serve us.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think that people have retreated back to places where they've come from, places that are more comfortable, less engaged with people who look different, think different, date different, all the things?
I think it's fear. I mean, people are really afraid of the other, we're coming off of I've done a lot in life, but I've been in the political sphere, and we're coming off a lot of the fear of other. I mean, commercials, all of us have witnessed after the elections of don't be a socialist, don't be a racist, all these things. And it's sad and it's sick, to be quite honest. And, my hope and what I really want to see is for folks to really lean in to the other and not away from it.
I know that it's more complex, but my observations have been as our algorithms for our digital world get better, we become more isolated, siloed, retreated, because they're giving us what they think that we want. And it's just reinforcing the past stuff. It's reinforcing the last thing. It's reinforcing the heritage. It's reinforcing the belief system instead of inviting us to look from other people's perspectives and see things differently and engage with different kinds of people. We're being manipulated by the tech companies because the algorithms are so good.
Totally. And imagine now, right? We're just coming off of 8 months of being in COVID, when we're really stuck in diving into and exposed to whatever social platforms we're given, the media is giving us and whatnot. And so it's a real problem. And we can't be stuck there, and we have to. There's got to be more voices that are telling us to reach out.
Yeah, that are bridging the gaps, that are talking different places. Like this is a random example, but it just made me think of Pete. Is it Buttigieg? What's that guy's name?
Yeah, Buttigieg. Yeah.
So that he would be a Democrat, but he intentionally goes on Fox News, which I have a tough time watching at all. But somehow that guy can go on there and interact, be respectful, share different opinion. I don't know. I really like that. And the same with the more conservative people that will go on a more liberal news station and just be present and share a different perspective and be civil and kind.
The great quote, right? King, you know, disagree without living a life of, you know, being disagreeable and disagreement, and saying, no, we're not even going to talk. And I love that. Like, man, yeah, we can disagree. It's good. You and I have disagreed several times.
Lots of times.
Yep. To the point of not talking for 30 days straight. Was that the?
Oh, it was a good 2 or 3 weeks at least. Yeah.
We were immature guys. I don't know.
Yeah. We sat next to each other in a class, like right next to each other, like a couple feet away, and didn't speak for 3 weeks.
I felt like I was driving the relationship at the time. And I was like, it was a test in my head. Like, how long will Caleb, like, if I don't initiate a conversation, say, hey, Caleb, good morning. Yeah, what's up? You know, and then we get in a conversation. I wonder if I just come in and not say anything, will he say something? So it was a test.
Well, it started because there was already like a riff or irritation. Like you had already been mad at me for not doing something or not.
I'm sure.
And then the test was on top of that. And I was just like, I'm good. I don't.
So the test, I go in, I'm like, let me see if he says anything. 2 weeks. 3 weeks. And then, as chance would have it, 2 girls invited us to a dance.
Like Sadie's or Girls League or something like that?
Yep, together. So awkward. Walk into your house, greet your parents.
Still not talking.
See you. Keep moving. And what broke it?
This is such a funny and embarrassing story. What restaurant were we at? Do you remember?
Benihana's.
Benihana's, it was. We're at Benihana's, and there's the meat on the thing in front of us, and it's our dates
like
were,
this.
Yeah, almost like this. Our dates were like best friends, and so they were sitting next to each other, and you and I were on the other sides of them. Still hadn't said a word in 3 weeks, and we're at this. We're in nice suits and everything, and Benihana is doing his thing right there, and then we just go at the exact same moment. Both of us put our arms around our dates and our fingers.
They interlock.
Our fingers touched in the most awkward of ways.
And that broke it.
And we just started laughing out loud. And no one really got it.
No. And the girls kind of look like, they're laughing.
Yeah.
But it was like, all right, we're good. We're
good. Yeah. Didn't need to say anything at that point.
So weird.
Yeah.
And yet, I love that story. And I told it to my kids actually not too long ago. I love it because that immaturity is how we act as humans.
So much.
Oh.
So often.
And we take that frustration and that anger to a whole nother place of, almost violence is what I'm seeing, right? And so...
Well, there's violence, and then there's indifference.
Yeah.
And sometimes indifference is almost worse because you can just be so cold-hearted toward the other and think that it's their fault or their responsibility to fix it or whatever, that you just stop caring and you just become the ice queen or king and just write people off. But the violence too. I mean, we see both everywhere.
Yep.
Dude, we mentioned football earlier, and you were a stud. You still are a stud. We worked out this morning. You're still strong. I don't want to, mean to say that you're not.
Thank you.
But
that really makes me feel good inside. Thank you.
I'm glad.
I was wondering if you noticed.
So you played football at a high level, recruited, full ride to University of Colorado Buffaloes, and and you were highly touted. You started at least some of your freshman season.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even redshirt at the time. You just went right in and started playing, but your career didn't go as you thought it would. Let's talk a little bit about that and kind of
Yeah.
the unexpected things in life.
I'll just say I saw myself playing in the NFL. You know, my view in life was, here's Albus, he's going to play in the NFL, and then I was going to give money to charity. Like literally that that was my thinking. I'd play 15 years, I'd be compared to Ronnie Lott. I mean, it's really sad to think about that, but that's how I thought. Got to see you, played immediately, was a starter, was recognized in Sports Illustrated, blew out my knee
Freshman year?
freshman year.
How'd it happen?
Man, you remember in the 90s, we played on turf.
Yeah, like not the good, like now they have good rubber.
Yeah.
This was like the bad turf.
This is like the Astrodome turf,
yeah,
dude.
just what were people thinking?
And so I hit a guy really hard, so hard that I came off my feet. And then when I landed, I just it was almost like I heard a shotgun in my knee.
Huh.
My feet landed, my right foot landed, and it popped. So blew out my knee, and that was the second time because I blew my knee out in high school, as you remember.
Yep.
And
Same one?
Yep. And later that year, tried to come back and play, and that's when my time started diminishing because I wasn't as fast, I had 2 knee surgeries, and I believe I had this deal in me. It's a regenerative knee, that every time you have a surgery, something happens, it actually gets worse.
Mm.
And so I had to retire early from football. And to add insult to injury, the guy behind me, Michael Lewis, signed a $10 million contract.
Yeah.
So, I mean, devastating.
Yeah.
It was devastating, especially when your whole life I was kind of groomed to be this athlete. And so I think, I can feel the emotion right now just
Really?
sitting in there when the doctor was like, it's over.
Mm.
And so,
And when you say you were groomed to be an athlete, specifically from your dad?
yeah, my dad, great man, no longer here with us, but really was like, I remember just from a young age, playing basketball with Baron Davis and Tayshaun Prince and all those guys in LA.
He would take you into the city.
Yeah.
To play with the guys who could play.
Play.
play. Guys who are still playing.
Yeah.
In the
millions
league.
Of dollars, right? So, I think that was really hard for me. And I was really blessed with a gift, though, right? Like, I was surrounded with some incredible people in Boulder and in Colorado who were really encouraging me to say, I think you got a future ahead of you. And I want to give credit to Rick Neuheisel right now, because when I got to Colorado, he said...
Who was the head coach?
He's the head coach of University of Colorado. He said, Albus, the sky is the limit for you past football. Now, at 18 years of age, I don't even know what that means, but it came back to me. Mm. I might have some other gifts. Mm. There may be some other areas I could excel in, which was still hard for my mind to realize. But at that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to start leaning into them. So for the first time, I was getting A's in school. Mm. I was working my butt off. I was looking at different ministries, like, man, maybe I want to do ministry. I was actually looking at law school. Maybe I want to go this direction. And it ended up being going in the ministry and doing Young Life in the city in Denver. Mm.
Mm. So Rick Neuheisel played a role in inspiring you to think beyond football. Do you remember anything else when you were needing to set aside this, what had been to that point, a 20-year, almost lifelong dream of this was my path. I'm an athlete. I'm a baller. I'm going to be in the NFL. And then having to set that aside, pivot, look at your life and future differently. Was there anything else that contributed to you making peace with that?
Yeah, I think, a guy by the name of Ray Donatucci, who is, a big Young Life guy,
In Boulder.
Yep, in Boulder really encouraged me. I think that's when my faith really grew, right? Like really encouraged me just as a man, and then as kind of a spiritual, I wouldn't even say spiritual leader, but he really helped me through spiritual formation and guidance of navigating. How do I not see myself as a football player, but as a man who is called and has a purpose? And I really took that and started diving in. I mean, I remember waking up early every morning and just like diving into scripture and like diving into writing. I started journaling like never before and praying and asking questions. And I was so curious to find out who I really am. And it was an amazing journey.
So the next step was, I'm going to sign on with this organization called Young Life that you had some exposure to, because my dad was vice president. We did some Young Life stuff in high school together, went to some camps, and then you go into downtown Denver and you're in the city and you're loving kids and helping them kind of have hope and a new perspective like you got.
Yeah, and I love this story because it shows you how you have to be very in tune with what your calling is and not someone else's calling. So
what does that say more about that?
Yeah, so I knew that I was called to the city, and specifically young boys of color. I knew that. Like I was passionate about it. But as I got into Young Life, there were others who were like, "Oh, come to this school." A primarily white school that was doing well.
Yeah, because I remember in Young Life, they called you a unicorn or a white tiger, right?
Yeah.
That you were so rare that you could relate and build relationship and trust with anybody.
Yep.
A hard inner city kid and a privileged kid from this affluent family, black, white, Hispanic, like you could relate. And so you were like golden boy.
So a lot of folks wanted me to go to these white schools, right? Which Young Life has traditionally in cities. They would build a donut around the city, right? And not be in the hardest places. And I was like, no, take me to the hardest school in Denver. This school, Montbello High School, was so tough that when we started doing outreach there, the parents said, don't do this here.
The parents did.
The parents. Something I'd never seen before.
Wow. The parents said, we don't want you investing in our kids.
Don't. That's what I was like, what? They're like, you would be a much better fit, at a more highfalutin school, helping those because they have a better opportunity. The kids here at this school are failing. And it was so disorienting to me that I was like, not only am I going to stay at the school, I'm about to buy an apartment in the worst complex in the neighborhood. And so, and the name of the complex was Albrook.
Albrook?
I was like, this is a sign from God. I'm moving in. And it was bad.
What's the rent?
I mean, there's, a crackhead next door and all this kind of stuff. But man, it allowed me to really understand what incarnation means,
Which means?
Which is really becoming, right? Like God becoming and moving in next to us, right? God moving into our neighborhood, right? And so the incarnation was important for me, that these young black men would see a single black man focused on their life, living a life above reproach with integrity, all this kind of stuff in their own community, in the worst neighborhood. And I'll tell you, to this day, I was just texting he turns 34 today. Michael Sapp, one of my first Young Life kids, who is now doing incredible stuff in the mayor's office in Denver.
Really?
He said, man, do you remember when you moved into Albrook? I was like, of course I did. I moved in there. He goes, man, that changed my life. He goes, you didn't have to say anything. Just the simple fact that you would come to our street, our neighborhood, when you're so talented, could be doing all these things. And it changed me because I really got to see my gifts utilized onto another level. And I found my purpose at that point.
How would you, so your purpose being?
My purpose in life, so I think there's a couple of them, right? And I think we all have a couple purposes. My purpose is to bring people together, but it's also to bring about healing in young Black boys who were not given the same opportunities that I was. And especially young gang kids, who ex-gang members in gangs. I'm just drawn to that. I love it, and I love to see restoration in their lives.
During that period of time, because you worked for Young Life in the city for like 7 years, is that about right?
Yeah.
And in that period of time, you got married.
Yep.
And you married a white girl.
Is she white? She is white. That's interesting. Yep.
So that was another way that you were, I don't know, maybe like called, or that God put in you to be a bridge builder.
Yep.
Right. And a healer. And so even your marriage is a visible, I mean, you mentioned just the visible demonstration of moving into the city. Even your marriage is a visible demonstration of bridge building and bringing together and creating harmony. And
Debbie Gorton at the time was a Young Life leader at another high school, and Montbello was building steam. That school that no one wanted me to go to, we were having 200 kids come to these clubs. We had these discipleship groups that were like 50 to 75 kids. They were so hungry for the attention and for the time that we couldn't contain it. So we grew. I became the area director, and Debbie was a Young Life leader. You're not supposed to date. So I fired her, dated her, then rehired her. But she was thinking about those first days, she was just such a joy, she was passionate about the city. She had a very eclectic white upbringing. And so being in the city with kids of color and all this energy she loved. And we quickly, became close and eventually married. Now married 14 years.
14 years.
Can you believe that?
Congratulations.
I know I look
like a baby.
Like a baby, but I have been married 14 years with 3 kids.
It's wild, dude.
It's crazy.
And so that we could talk more about the marriage if that weaves into this. The time with Young Life was 7 years, and then you felt like, okay, I still have this calling and purpose, but I'm maybe not going to do it here anymore. It's going to express itself differently.
It just began to grow. And I always tell folks, like, follow the string, the thread of calling in your life, right? Because it builds on itself. So I knew I was passionate about young Black and brown kids. I knew that. So I get in the Young Life. Young Life is the vehicle. It's not the calling, right? So I get into Young Life, start building. What do I notice? Oh, crap. None of these kids, even though they may be getting spiritual refreshment and perspective from me, they have horrible schools. They're in neighborhoods that are not getting the proper investment from their city. Let's just say no grocery stores, no rec centers. I mean, why is a kid living in this neighborhood have a lower life expectancy than a kid living 10 miles away? So those things started like bothering me, right? Like, I can't just stay as a minister and not affect the public realm. And in some of these individuals, so I started getting in public life, right? So I started going to neighborhood meetings, created an organization called Issachar Center for Urban Leadership,
That's
which
right.
paid for the full ride scholarship of any kid who get in. I thought it was cool that I got a scholarship, but what about a normal kid who's not
Blackout Brooks?
who's not an athlete? How come they can't get a scholarship? So we created a scholarship for those who get it. So they started going in, and then the mayor of the city, John Hickenlooper, who is now our United States Senator, and came and said, hey, I want to check out this deal. So he comes to our Issachar Center. He's like, wow, I love this. This is awesome. And on the spot, he's like, you should come work for me. You should take this to another level. And I'm like, we just got a big grant to go citywide with Issachar, and all these things started happening. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm not interested. And 3 weeks later, he runs for governor, and he calls me again to run his statewide campaign. I don't know what I'm doing, obviously. And I was like, yeah, sure. Because I followed that thread, and I was like, maybe this will give me an in to create greater change for these young people. So I did.
Yeah, a calling that keeps whispering in different ways, right?
Yep.
It's something in here. And I've wondered if another way of thinking about it is in terms of football, and then young life, and then politics is the direction that you move next. If we have questions too, like there's this calling, we have questions about how that plays out, and then we answer those questions. Like I feel like you answered your questions about young life, about that kind of ministry environment, about whatever. And I have some of those same things, like questions about, can I lead a church? Can I speak in front of thousands of people? Can I do these things? And I've answered a lot of those questions. And now I have different questions. I wonder if the whisper of the calling is leading in a different direction, or as you say, following that thread, because it's all building on each other. Sometimes we answer questions and we're ready to figure out some new questions.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was at that point watching John Hickenlooper, being a part of his group, seeing him ascend to be our governor. Then he asked me to go to the state. I was like, no, I got it. I know what I want to do next. I want to run a city. And this is where the story gets crazy. Like, matter of fact, I really recommend no one repeat what happened in my life, because it is crazy. So I leave Hickenlooper. I go back to Issachar, and I'm working there. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to do for a while, but I want to eventually run for city council. The current city council person is a woman. She's about 60 years old. I never forget, I went to city council, and our city of Denver is about half and half. Half white, the rest folks of color, mostly women and men, right? I look at the city council, and it's just old white people up there. And it wasn't the anger. It wasn't like invigorated anger. It was just like a passion. Like, okay, we got to change this. This is not representative of the city I live in. So I meet with my city council person. I let her know, hey, my name is Albus Brooks. Looks like you're running another term. I want to support you that term. And I know you get 3 terms, but why don't you not run the third and I run? And then, you can kind of coach her. She's like, hello, who are you? No. But I was so sure. And I really want to tell people this. Sometimes that vision in you, like, it's crystal clear. And that's good, but maybe be gentle and kind to help people catch up to what's been manifesting in you for months and years. And I was young. I was 31, and I'm like, okay, so move out the way.
You came in guns blazing.
I'm ready to roll.
60-year-old lady.
So she laughs at me. This is February. This is where it gets crazy. I'm leading a Bible study at Issachar. And this is now April. And I'm talking about Abraham and what it's like to live this blessed life. Like, why did God pick Abraham? And it's like those who who bless you, I will bless. Those who curse you, I will curse. And we're having this conversation with these urban leaders, these college kids. Like, I don't believe that, man. God has never picked me like that. How do you know what it means to be picked? I look on my phone and there's like 10 missed calls from the first black mayor of the city, Wellington Webb, who in our city, number one, if you get a call from Wellington Webb, wow. You better hope you did something right. Because he's 6'6". He's this huge black dude who just has incredible power, especially thinking of that in my 31-year-old eyes. Long story short, the woman died. The city council woman died. And Webb was calling me to say, it's your time.
Wow.
Run. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this because it's been so long. And I was like, what you mean it's my time? I don't know what to do. I mean, I had all the passion and the vision, but I didn't even know what zoning laws were. I don't know how to run a campaign, how to do it. Figure it out. It's go time. When the window is open, you go. And when Wellington Webb says that, you do it. So I tell my wife, I was like, it's go time. And to Debbie's credit, Debbie's like, yep. I mean, so easily she can run, you're crazy.
Yeah.
What if you lose? Then we don't have a job and what's going, she didn't say it. She goes, yep, you've been talking about this for a year. So it is the most people in municipal history to run for a race. 38 candidates. I'm the youngest.
Ran for your seat on city council.
Yes.
38 people.
38 people. They're lawyers. They're, folks who've been in the black church and understood by so many people in the community and known. Then there's Albus Brooks. Not known. Yeah, he does the community stuff. He just play football. Okay. What's his background? So I'm clearly outgunned in this deal.
What about the funding? What's the funding like? Because that might have been challenging for you as the new guy.
So you got to remember, I was in Young Life and I was already raising $1 million a year for Issachar. So I wasn't worried about the funding.
Okay.
It's different though now because you have funding limits. So that multi-billionaire who was really funding our Issachar couldn't give more than $1,000.
Oh, wow.
So I had to, they looked at me like, how you know 1,000 people with $1,000? That's how I raised. I just asked everyone for $1,000 that I knew from my CU days, from my Young Life, the Issachar connections, my Hickenlooper connections, So anyway, raised the money. And I think I was young and foolish. I just went into meetings, like events and debates, not prepared, just talking about the city. And that's what won people over is like, this dude loves the city. Now, he couldn't tell you what a mixed-use zoning building is. So I would always start off stuff like that. It'd be 30 of us up there. And I'm like, all of these folks know a lot about their city, but they don't love their city.
Yeah.
I love this city. I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I do know this is what we're going to do with gangs in our community. We're going to start bringing folks together. And my tagline was, what good is diversity if we're all disconnected? And I want to connect our diverse communities. People loved it. But this was what people really loved and why I think we end up winning. We end up winning by 2,000 votes in 38. It wasn't even close. I had all of the hardest, toughest kids knock 10,000 doors with me. So, Chris Wallace, 6'4", blood. That's a gang member.
Oh, is that what that is?
From 33rd Street would knock on a door. Hey, my name is Chris. This dude changed my life. He's going to change the city. White lady. Okay. What'd you say his name was? But it was just powerful. People saw love and transformation, and it was something more than just rhetoric.
Yeah.
And so
that's so good, dude.
We got elected.
You were 31?
31.
When you got elected to
Youngest
city council?
African American to get elected in Denver's history.
It's awesome.
And I'm looking back on it and even telling the story. I'm like, dang, dude, I should have been a lot more scared and a lot more like
intimidated or
like ready for the debates.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we did nothing. We did no studying. And it was Wellington Webb's. He goes, don't even worry about none of that. They got to see your heart.
He coached you that way. They got to see your heart.
Yep.
What do you learn from that? What do you take away from that in terms of the rest of your life and how you coach other people that are trying to change things? Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a little bit of preparation involved, but the heart wins.
Yeah.
Right? How do you apply that now?
Well, it's just the authenticity. I tell folks, and I do it in myself now that my life has been changed again, but to radically identify what your calling is and stick to it, right? Like if I would have been out there trying to be Obama or trying to be, Wellington Webb or anybody else, I would have failed miserably. But I said, I'm going to be Albus. I'm going to radically be who God has gifted me to be. Even though I don't like all of my gifts or like I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to bet on, this sounds horrible, but betting on yourself, right? It's like, I'm going to bet on what God gave me. And it works more time than I think, I don't want to offend anybody, but I think Joe Biden is a perfect example of this. Talk about a guy who should not have won. I mean, there were more Democratic qualified candidates and he was done. You know what he said? There's one thing I know in my life, and that's pain. My kids dying, my wife dying. There's one thing I know is that America's in a lot of pain, and I feel like I can heal it better than anybody else. And he just stuck to it, stuttering, getting made fun of. He's the president-elect right now. And I just think whether you agree with his policies or not, and he was not my, absolute choice, right? I gotta love that he stuck to his calling.
Yeah, he did. Speaking of that pain, your tenure in city council, you won twice, right?
Yep.
And the second time around, you became the president of the city council. So how many people are on city council in Denver?
13.
Representing 13 districts?
11 districts, 2 at large.
Okay, 11 districts, 2 at large. And then there's a president that kind of helps to manage, facilitate.
Runs it and if anything happens to the mayor, the president becomes mayor.
If anything happens to the mayor, president becomes mayor. Okay, so you developed a good relationship with your mayor.
Yep.
And then you ran a third time and didn't win. Pain, disappointment, another discouragement. What did that look like? And then where did you find yourself after that?
Yeah, I think I was drawn back to that moment when the doctor said, "You're done playing." Because now at this point, I'm doing national stuff. I'm on national committees. I have an incredible network throughout the world politically. And so to lose is a major embarrassment. And so I end up losing by, 19,000 people voted, 600 votes.
600 votes.
And so I'm competitive. It sucks to lose and it's embarrassing. But it was painful. It was painful. And I sat there and I just sat in it. And I began to practice those tools that I learned a long time ago when I was 22 of digging deep. All right, let me follow that thread of calling. What's next now? Okay, gotta give me a little vision. Wow, I haven't been with my family in 7 years. They miss me.
Because you were out a lot.
A lot.
So many evening meetings.
Meetings, traveling across the world, being an ambassador for the city of Denver, across America, all that kind of stuff. Reintroduction to my wife, reintroduction to my kids, right? This is a blessing. And so, and something that a vision, I think it describes 2020 too. We lived when Debbie and I first got married. Actually, the kids were young, so this was 2010. Lived in the back of a mountain called Green Mountain. And we're sitting there, and a fire comes. And Green Mountain is beautiful. It's to the west of downtown Denver, and as you're standing on top of Green Mountain, you see all of downtown Denver and its glory.
In all its glory.
In all its glory. And fire comes, and it was devastating. It just burnt the whole mountain. And I remember just feeling super disappointed and, wow, what does this mean? Even going spiritual. 48 hours later, after the firefighters had kind of cleared up all the debris, you saw all over the mountain new growth. I mean, there's greenery all over. And it was the first time, so I started studying it, right? I started looking like, what is this new growth? What is this? And it was almost like a pruning, of that heel, because the mountain had some dead in it, and it wasn't all green. But now it was going to become green because of this new growth. And I liken disappointment to that, that it is like a fire. It is like 2020, totally disappointing, totally shocking.
Some things that are just a dumpster fire. These things are just going to
burn. And it's shocking to the system, and it's disorienting.
Yeah.
But if you are focused enough to sit back and be open and be still, that new growth is beautiful.
Yeah. And it can help you discern, as you said, where that next thread's going to be leading you.
Yep.
Like that whisper. The calling is still there. All right, what's the whisper?
Yep.
It's the new redirection. How do I look for the new greenery? How do I follow that path?
Totally.
And that's what you experienced again.
Yeah. So I, this is actually a funny story and not funny, but I'm losing the election, and I'm sitting in my room alone. My wife and kids are at the neighbors, and she's like, I'm gonna give you some space because looks like you're about to take this L. Secretly, she was cheering that I was losing because she was like, I want my husband back. And you can't blame her. So I'm sitting back, and I get a text from one of my good friends, Brian White, who is the CEO of Milender White, which is a construction development company. And he just says, man, I know you're bummed about losing, but keep your head up, because I'd venture to say there's better opportunities for you tomorrow. It was kind of like, I was like, man, is this like did God like call him to text me? Like,
is this a fortune cookie text?
Like mourning may endure for the night, weeping, whatever, but joy comes in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so he texts me in the morning. He goes, man, I want to offer you a position with our company. I'd love for you to be our vice president of strategy and business development. And I was like, that's so cool. I don't know construction. I mean, I do, right?
I've lived in a house.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean,
I'm not and I funded a ton of projects, Denver International Airport and rebuilding of downtown, and I've been on the financing side, but not, He goes, that's okay. So essentially, Caleb, they make me a shareholder of their company. And I've been there now for 16 months. And it's incredible. It's so much fun, so much new growth, new opportunity, and time with my family. And
you're here right now. You brought one of your daughters with you.
Yeah.
And you're able to bond and spend that extra time. And
yeah, and just she's like, Dad, this is just fun. And so it's newness. I mean, there's a little added pressure of now the end of our cities, the mayor's is done, and folks are like, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna? And I laugh at that, right? I'm like, guys, seriously, like I'm in a new life. Like, this is amazing, but I still have a love for my city, right? And so there's things like that. But today, I'm committed to this, and committed to the things that I get a chance to do. We started a foundation in my dad's name.
Yeah, because about the same time, where was it in terms of losing that election that your father passed away?
It was I lost the election in 19. My father passed away in 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it had been that long.
Yeah, and so the Perry Brooks Senior Foundation that I founded supports young boys of color in Denver and Southern California. And so we raise money, and we all over the charts, from education to employment to health. African American men are at the bottom of the list, and so we want to do something about it. And it's just cool to be able. That was my dad's passion. It's, like I said, it was my purpose earlier, and now we're doing something about it. So it's cool.
Yeah. Your dad, Perry Brooks Sr., he worked in a correctional institution for a long time. Like helping these guys.
And he
think differently about their lives.
Yeah, and he was a youth counselor, started youth counselor, worked his way up to the top of the youth authority in California, underneath the governor, reporting to the governor. And he was always known for his rehabilitation of the worst inmates. And what did he use? The same model that he saw Larry, your dad, do with us through Young Life. And he implemented this very incarnational, relational methodology with these young people. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, your dad was a good man. And I remember being in the backseat of his Mercedes driving to practices and kind of like smirking because he would just ride you, be like, Albus, why didn't you do this? Hey, Caleb, I really liked what you did.
Caleb, that was so sweet. You just came out, and I was like, really? Really?
Oh, man. Well, thanks, Al. Thank you for taking us on this journey, man, and for giving us a sense of hope when things aren't going right, that there's new things growing. And I love the picture that you gave us of the thread of the calling, that we can just keep following that, and that the vehicles change. There's going to be a new vehicle when one goes away, when one breaks down, but the thread will keep leading us.
Fall in love with the thread. Stay committed to the thread. We get in trouble when we fall in love with the vehicle.
That's good.
Right? And trust me, it was not easy to leave Young Life. It was not easy leaving the city. There's a lot of people who don't understand. They think you're supposed to stay in that damn vehicle for 150 years.
Yeah. They feel more comfortable if they can keep you in the category that they know you to be. But no. You're following a larger thread. Love it, dude. Well, I love that I get to follow you and be with you on this whole journey. Appreciate your friendship, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks, man.